Meeting of the Park City Board of Education today, Tuesday, January 16th, at 4 p.m. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the regular session minutes of December 12th, the sewer line easement, the also the water district access easement, contracts and personnel, amended SRO agreement with Park City Municipal Corporation, 2 travel requests, personnel information, December check register, and board revenues and expenditures for December 2023.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
Second.
Okay, do we have any questions on any of the contracts or any of the items in the consent agenda today?
I do not.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. We'll go into monthly reports. Why don't you start with student council?
Alright, so this is a recap. In December, we had our Spirit Week, the week before Christmas break. The 5 events we had all went super well. The students really loved all of them. The talent show, which was on Friday, it was super fun because we had 2 teachers who sang kind of like this duet during it, and it was so awesome to see them do that.
First of all, can I say, I was there, I had no idea.
Yeah,
She walked out and started singing, it was from the chair.
yeah,
She's a breed.
yeah.
Incredible.
The students only knew one teacher was participating. They didn't know about the second teacher until the second teacher walked on
She walked
stage.
out, the spotlight, she belted it out, and chills. The whole place, it was incredible. So cool.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite talent show we have had.
That was awesome.
And then we just have one upcoming event, and that is Winter Formal. It is going to be on February 3rd from 7 to 9 p.m. and it will be in the back gym at PCHS, and the theme is fire and ice.
Cool.
Awesome, thank you. Mary.
All right, I'll make this really short because I'm gonna come back. Good evening, everyone. PCA has been working with the DO on a few issues, one of which we will present on later this evening. In the past few weeks, PCA has been working with the DO on a few possible changes to both our paid parental leave policy as well as the calendar in upcoming years. We continue to monitor the sub-situation to ensure coverage is adequate across the district, and we'll continue conversations surrounding the best use of parent-teacher conference times during the year that is conducive to both teachers and families. We look forward to continuing conversations and keeping a close eye on the upcoming legislative session beginning today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other employee groups? Okay. We will move on to the teaching and learning report.
So here we are.
Okay,
Pretty creative
sure.
with it.
Fine.
Yes, that way we will do the PowerPoint. Explain.
Oh, Tricia.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. What are we doing?
PowerPoint.
The superintendent's PowerPoint.
Yeah, everybody's on one.
They have
PowerPoint.
says one.
That's very confusing, but okay.
I don't know.
Is there me?
We are really good.
I bought all of them.
Sorry. Thought this was today. It's something else.
right, while we're waiting, the board would formally like to recognize Roger Buckley for receiving the Principal of the Year Award for the state of Utah, one of 50 nationally recognized principals. We are proud to have that recognition here in the district and proud to have you here.
Thank you very much.
It's been you've definitely added quite a bit to the high school in your tenure, and it's wonderful that the rest of the state is recognizing your accomplishments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's really the work of the incredible teachers and staff that we have and everybody that, it's a team effort. Thank you. Thanks.
Well done. This is very nice.
It was another one, Chiefs Award
You're
last
getting two a
week.
week now.
Yeah. I saw.
I was jokingly saying that if you let your hair grow out, good things
Yeah.
happen. So-
Good, yeah.
So, Roger will be officially introduced to the state, with this recognition January 29 in, St. George during the winter conference for secondary principals. That's very exciting. And then there is a national competition, which I didn't know about. So he's up for the national principal of the year recognition. So it's a big accomplishment.
You know, and that's,
I don't know the national one, when that, what that conference or what the contest is or how they do it.
It's like,
Pretty nice. Okay. And yes, on the PowerPoint, we ended up getting it up there, the first picture. We got a picture of Chief, we got a picture of this morning. It was a rousing pep rally. It was really fun.
Mike, do you want to do the facilities update? Sure. Time. Yeah. Cool.
Instead of the regular facility report, we're gonna present that portion of the hearing.
Okay.
But I'll be the construction, I think that's okay.
Cool. Yeah, great.
Just want to let the public know that with all our schools, the projects have been planned to minimize educational impact, ensure safety for students and staff, minimize traffic and parking disruption. Weekly construction meetings are being held with the architects, builders, and district staff to ensure timely tactical coordination and decision-making. MOCA is also conducting bi-weekly owners meetings for important strategic updates and decisions. We'll start talking about the high school. It's on schedule. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, we call it MEP, and HVAC work continues. Structural steel, masonry, and slab and deck work are occurring on the third floor of phase one. Masonry work is rapidly progressing on the second and third floor interior shear walls. Interior framing and foundation work are progressing in areas A. We're still on track for substantial completion in spring of 2020. And I don't know if anybody drove by there this morning. There was a nice big concrete pumping truck pumping concrete up to the third floor slab. Kind of cool to see. It's really going up there. Everett Hill Middle School is on schedule. MEP work for HVAC and fire protection systems continue. Masonry work on both north side expansion is progressing. Slab and grade was poured in area B. Structural steel roof joists arrived yesterday for the expanded gym ceiling. And the kitchen was returned to full production on the 2nd of January. Substantial completion on target for spring of 2025. Jeremy is on schedule. Drywall finishing is 90% complete. MEP work continues. Interior architectural element, wall and ceiling paint, tile, grid ceilings, interior glass, cabinetry, wall trim out, and tack wall work are well underway. Security systems were examined for adequacy and system integration, and the furniture was ordered. Substantial completion this summer of 2024. We're also happy to tell you that we're on target for an early spring possible completion. Poland is on schedule. Interior rough-ins finish and MEP work is 90% complete. Pipe insulation, tile wall, and floor work are 95% complete. Interior architectural element, wall and ceiling paint, exterior architectural windows, ceiling grid and tile, cabinetry, interior glass, flooring, and all wall trim out work are well underway. Security systems here were also examined for adequacy and existing system integration. Furniture was also ordered from Poland. Substantial completion date, summer 2024, and again, we're hoping for an early spring, substantial completion. Charlie's Park is on schedule. Ongoing work continues on interior framing, grease interceptor relocation, underground utility relocation, and electrical panel installation. Substantial completion will be October of 2024. Trailside coordination has begun with the county and USBE. CUP and rezone apps work is in progress. Design work is underway. And anticipating a construction start this summer. Anticipate substantial completion 1 year later, December 2025. A reminder, a construction summary and layman's narrative is posted weekly on the district website. The district's owner rep, Mocha JD, is here tonight if you have any in-depth questions. I also want to brief you on soil mitigation, our progress there. The Treasure Mountain Junior High contaminated soil removal operations were conducted from the 18th to the 29th of December. Nearly half of the soil was removed without incident. A small pile is completely removed. The EPA and DEQ were on site throughout the operation, along with local media. Post-operational testing confirmed no elevated contaminant levels within Treasure Mountain. And remaining soil was removed for the spring break, the 19th to 23rd of February, and spring break the 15th to 19th of April. That's a construction update.
All right, we're ready.
Okay, we're going to give you a mid-year update here, and we'll start with operations. Just want to remind the board that the operations and resources strategic goal is that Park City School District will be stewards of public resources and taxpayer funding and plan for future needs by establishing standards of excellence in budget and financial management, human resources, facility plan implementation and construction, capital outlay, maintenance and custodial services, child nutrition, transportation, security, and environmental sustainability, clean energy management, as well as commissions on updating to the master athletic facilities plan. We'll go through each one of the departments really quick, give you a very high level summary of what we've done to date. The next slide, please. In the buildings and grounds department, we've maintained cleaned exterior interior systems of 10 buildings, which consist of 1 million square feet. We had over 100 acres. We managed 5 major building projects, and we're starting the planning on 1 more. All of them are on schedule and budget. We managed the RFP, PR and execution of the Treasure Mountain Junior High contaminated soil removal, which is on schedule and budget. We launched the RFP and ordered the master athletic facility planning effort for future planning efforts. And we're in the process of reworking the interlocal agreement between Centerville Basin Recreation District, Park City School District, Park City Municipal, for collaborative recreational facility use with those 2 agencies. Next slide, please. In the transportation area, screened, hired, trained 4 new contract drivers plus 2 substitute drivers for the 2023-24 school year. Added new personnel, which has allowed staff to resume normal duties, recover some of our routes, and improve efficiency. We've added 2 new propane buses to the fleet, removed the last age-out diesel bus. 10-year rotation on our buses that we're targeting, and we've consolidated the 1 fleet for fuel vehicles. We added Zonar GPS tracking system to the bus fleet, which allows parents to estimate time arrival at stops. And we added bus assignments to Power School, allowing route-specific parental notification as needed. And we've updated the transportation policy in alignment with Utah regulations. Next slide, please. Child nutrition services. Recruit, train new staff, establish full staffing across the schools, and maintain high staff morale. Managed equipment modernization at several kitchens to increase scratch cooking capability. Managed the Ecker Hill Middle School kitchen remodel, the whole time providing alternate meals, assisting in design and procurement of the new space, and training new staff on the new equipment. Restructured the menus, increased scratch cooking for improved meal quality, and nutrition is an ongoing effort on behalf of our CNS team. Human resources, we recruited and hired our new chief human resources officer, Greg, who's behind us. We implemented new wage structures and collective bargaining agreement negotiations for a dramatic improvement in staffing and bill rates. We managed start of the year recruiting, interviewing, and hiring process as annual efforts to replace retirees. And we've analyzed district-wide E&J job description and salary study draft to ascertain Park City School District is aligned with market trends across our region. And this was a regional study. In the area of security, We procured $927,000 of HB 61 grant funds for district security system upgrades, which are used to which used to be unrestricted capital allocation and now requires application for Utah legislation in 2023. We integrated our security systems or newly constructed spaces with the existing spaces. We added systems and trained staff on Ajax instant alert and zero-eyes firearm detection platforms, keep an eye on current safety notification practices. We established and trained CSCAG internal threat assessment protocol for managing potential threats. And we updated the Park City Municipal SRO agreement in accordance with House Bill 61, using House Bill 61 to possibly in the future to bring a Summit County Sheriff's Office SRO to Eckerd Hill Middle School. And that's our question. Academics is next.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
When you do grade alignment, when it comes to transportation, are there gonna be any shifts in school start times, or since you're not doing that other?
Yeah, you know, we've discussed it and looked at it, and it doesn't really look like that's gonna work. It still looks like we're gonna sit with our 3 phases of transportation.
No.
Largely because of just, we're still handling the elementary school kids, Eckerd Hill Middle School kids, and high school kids, and the locations are so spread out that it's just impractical to get them all in 2 waves process. We looked at it and thought that'd be a great way to achieve efficiency, but it just doesn't look like it's gonna be a possibility.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nyla.
Hello, we're going to talk about academics, and first up, I'll do this and I'll do the next slide for you. Is that okay? Yes, great. Our first group of goals are about providing high quality professional development for all educators, focusing on our Park City School District instructional framework, as well as reviewing and updating the framework to become version 2.0. Also to have Park City School District continue certification in letters, which is the reading and spelling initiative from USBE for all certified teachers in grades K-3 to support our early literacy plan and to improve early childhood literacy outcomes and achievement. The ELA curriculum and resource selection will take place this spring. For our ongoing professional collaborations in our professional learning communities based on data, that is our main teaching and learning goal for this year. We are making progress at every level of refining that practice. We are also in a 3rd year implementation of inquiry cycles that are related to our PLCs and a 6-week implementation cycle to improve instruction. We are working on embedding our evidence-based practices in our instructional coaches handbook, which will then, so the evidence-based practices are things that are well known in the industry, but USBE is doing work on listing those out and integrating them with the new Utah Effective Teaching Standards and with PCBL. So we're making sure that everything that we're doing is aligned and we're using the same language and building the same skills. As we adapt that instructional coaches handbook, that will allow us to make version 2.0 of the instructional framework, and also to integrate the new Utah Effective Teaching Standards, and also coordinate with human resources for teacher assessment and evaluation. We are working on improving our skills in standards-based instruction and grading. We are also working on continuing to deploy and understand our own proficiency scales, PCBL, which is first one is competency-based learning, portrait of a graduate, have that all foundational to our work. Our district specialists for literacy, math, science, DLI, PACE, and fine arts have been coordinating these instructional efforts and improvements. We also have realigned our school improvement planning process to the PCSD strategic plan so that everything is going top to bottom and bottom to top. As we move into that school improvement planning sessions during these next couple of months, We've created an expansion model for our pre-K 4-year-olds to maximize our impact. And our sustainability coordinator is working with student initiatives and community partners on composting, green teams, sustainability advisory committee, and also green certifications for all of our schools. In the elementary, letters training completion, it's a 2-year project. Most of our teachers will be completing year 2 this year, but we have coordinated with NUES, with news, so that our newest teachers are also getting year 1 of letters training. We'll be able to continue that as we move forward. For a middle of year benchmark, we have 78% of our K-3 students at the reading benchmark for middle of year. Last year, we ended the year at 77, so we're making some progress there. Small group tiered instruction. We have ongoing professional learning and implementation with grouping adjustments for reading and math in all the elementaries. And our instructional materials adoption committee is convening this month to work through that process that we had presented to you earlier. Specifically at the individual elementaries, there's several little shout outs to them. If you look across in the table where it says multilingual learner progress, you can see that each of the 4 elementaries is working on tiered support for multilingual learners. They have a little different flourishes there, but a lot of them are implementing master scheduling that allows for tier 2 and tier 3 support. There's increased emphasis on small group instructions during tier 1 instruction. In the academic success area, which is the next row down, those are all specifically tailored to the needs at the individual school. So you can see at Jeremy, they are working on interventionists and classroom teachers providing tier 2 support in reading and math, and interventionists also working with tier 3. At Trailside, they're implementing a trial of UFly. This is decodable and modern reading instruction that comes out of the University of Florida Literacy Institute. That's what UFly is. And it focuses on improving reading instruction and also student learning in reading. So they're doing a trial on some of that. McPolin, they have been reviewing their middle of year data to adjust plans for math, and they're seeing progress in reading. And at Parley's, they are reviewing data at each weekly PLC so that they can have improved instructional planning in their grade level teams. For the 3rd row, you can see that teachers are working on collaboration, they're working with interventionists, they are working either in math, reading, writing, or providing small group instruction. So you'll see those are some common themes throughout the schools of the work that they're doing. For the next area of strategic goals in leadership, it's about realignment and PCBL. Park City School District will adopt and begin implementation of the Utah Portrait of a Graduate to prepare all students to succeed and lead via personalized competency-based progressions and pathways as part of the secondary redesign process. So, it's a little interesting in our presentation because we don't want to steal the thunder from each of the secondary schools, but we are trying to make sure that we're tightly partnered. So there will be a part where it looks like I'm saying that we're doing all of this at district level, but we're working closely at the schools. And then there's a part where it's the schools getting to shout out some of the things that they're accomplishing. So here we see for realignment and PCBL implementation, we have ongoing study of PCBL, and we're participating in the USPE cohort, which gives us a little bit of funding, brings us together with other people who are moving forward with this. We are convening focus groups who are studying to present options to you. They should have some results mid-March, and then they will come to you in March or April. Standards-based proficiency scales in inventory and update to see where we really are in secondary, and also early stage identification of equipment and supplies for the new spaces due to construction. We also have, for our CTE goals, I don't want to lose my place here. We are, with your support, refining the pathways to ensure alignment with industry trends and workforce data, and revamping our Intermountain Health Park City partnership to include a healthcare academy, including scaled clinical rotations for students, which is very exciting. We are increasing support for multilingual learners through professional learning and implementation at site levels through all secondary schools. PLC work on common formative assessments and data analysis, and grouping students based on identified academic need with improvements in testing data and passing classes. So here are some of the shout outs from the individual schools. At Ecker, they have been doing specific math interventions to improve student performance, and 69% of the 7th graders at middle of year have moved up at least one level in the software that they're using to benchmark that. It's not a grade level. 74% of the 6th graders have increased at least one level. At Treasure, they use the pre-ACT test results to make adjustments to class instructions. The Check and Connect mentors and their team have continued to build relationships with students and work to keep students in class and improve that attendance so that teachers can actually teach. Their after-school program offers academic support and enrichment, which is funded by a partnership between their community council and the foundation. Their reading and writing support has been offered to identified students in both ELA Bridge and in their study skills. At the high school, they are monitoring and reducing the number of students in failed classes. Their goal is 5%, and at end of term 1, they had reduced it by 2%. So they're making some progress toward that goal. It'll be interesting to see what happens at end of semester. All 10th graders reading well below grade level are receiving reading support, and that is new this year at Park City High School. Professional learning, school site level for MLL support in each class, and MTSS is implementing dropout prevention program for identified students. So if we look at our 5 goals that are our district goals, the first one about English learners, you can see that there was multilingual support woven through all the district levels. We have the update on the yellow one, which is the K3 literacy, students reading at proficiency. We heard about Ecker and math. The 3rd goal over there is about 8th grade math proficiency. So you heard interventions there. The green goal is the ACT goal, and it's pulled out for English and reading. You heard that there were English and that there were reading and literacy interventions at all of those levels. And then finally, our last goal is about graduation. And so Park City's and that effort to make sure that students are on track for graduation by passing all of their classes. So we have all of these things that are going on, but we are trying to target them all to those measurable strategic goals.
And keep in mind, Stacy's not even in here a semester yet. So it's really impressive to have gotten this much, her hands around this many areas. Really impressive.
And we're excited.
And that's a whole other study. That's another
That
project.
is very exciting. Lots of rumblings out about that. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. This is awesome. And maybe this isn't fair, given you've only been here. What is I've heard portrait of a graduate now since I've frankly been on the board. And I'm wondering how it's progressed and where we are further than when I first heard about it.
Okay.
And where we're trying to head, what else needs to happen to actually have that be an effective. That's great. goal and all of that, but I'm not fully understanding.
All right. So the portrait of a graduate is the big, huge umbrella with mastery, autonomy, and purpose. And I was privileged to be on part of the USBE teams that were working in the summer with different education professionals to develop some of that. Out of portrait of a graduate grew this movement for personalized competency-based learning. That is where we are focusing most of our effort and energy right now to make sure that we are going to have, in conjunction with realignment, be able to maximize those changes and see if we can use that high leverage moment to really have chances for students to have that competency based, that personalized learning. So that's where we're focusing, and that is an outgrowth under that portrait of a graduate umbrella. There's lots of other areas under that mastery, autonomy, and purpose. But autonomy gets to the personalized part, purpose gets to part of the competency-based, mastery really gets to competency-based. So we're focusing on the PCBL piece, and specifically in the PCBL piece, in the 5 dimensions that Utah has adopted. The first one is culture of learning. So that has to do with teacher belief about student performance and how it actually impacts student performance. It has to do with teacher efficacy in the classroom. It's about students what they believe that they have the opportunity to do. And so those are the areas where we're focusing. We will convene a team in our Reach the Summit Academy. Hopefully we can start at the end of this month. I've just been running a little behind, but definitely by February to make our Park City version. We have adopted the portrait of a graduate and have partnered with USBE for the model. So we match, but we just want to color it with our own flavor and make it match our minor style here and make sure that we are matching. Now, there are other initiatives that go on that are more detailed in the pieces of portrait of the graduate, but those are happening a little bit piecemeal. One piece that gets investigated is the kind of a transcript that a student has. And as part of our PCBL partnership with USBE, we are in a cohort that's investigating how transcripts have credits recorded, but in addition have school skills recorded on a transcript. They call it a mastery transcript. So you still have credits and grades on there, but what else is added on that lets a post-secondary school look at what a student can do and what they've mastered. So that's another piece. We're working on that on the side. It's not one of our central things. But in portrait of graduate, in those 3 sections of mastery, autonomy, and purpose, there are things like academics, things like service, things like financial literacy, wellness, and our initiatives that we are doing as a district. All of those roads lead to that because it's such a big umbrella. And if at any time you would like me to help you take a look at what portrait of a graduate is, I will do that, but by late spring or early summer, I'll have the Park City version to share with you.
Okay.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Long
That gives
answer.
me a, no,
Sorry.
great. I think maybe my question is more for you, since it was first talked about and introduced 4 or 5 years ago when we talked about what progress. I mean, I know there's a lot of progress and I'm not suggesting there isn't. What is the end goal? Where are we? What are we, when you say, I think in the presentation, it was getting that launched or getting is the goal the Park City version? I mean, what is the?
No, the goal is
Where
you're
are we
really
short right now?
reimagining, right? You're really reimagining the educations when you think about Park City's vision and mission. Excuse me. I either talk not enough or too much today. When you think about our mission and vision, that's aligned, right, to the portrait of the graduate when you think about it. So when we think about things like the wellness program, where it was just an idea 5 years ago, we now have the implementation across the grade levels of the wellness program that Carolyn's going to talk about a little later. That's one example of something that's gone further or farther.
Okay.
And there are certain indicators in each grade level as to what things we should be doing to help bolster kids in that wellness area. Some of it can be fitness awareness, some of it can be being kind to one another, some of it can be
I'm trying to think of whatever other
Yeah,
things are.
self-advocacy, hard work and resilience,
Right.
all the wellness plans all aligned to those soft
So
skills.
eventually, on this mastery transcript or this personal learner profile, you'll actually see not only the students' academic grades and their attendance and their goals for the future, but you'll also see, leadership in this many of their activities. You'll see things that a student can then take in hand to either an employer or the military, or to mission, or to university. That gives a bigger picture of who the child is. So it's really bringing whole child to life.
And we're on track for that and.
If we keep progressing, so we are doing things like our initiative this year that we just launched with the secondary that Carolyn and Stacy went to today. So we have a group that has helped us with this Stanford University-based inventory. The kids take it, the teachers take it, and I think I showed a little bit of it last month where we learned more about the students as learners. What are their traits? So do they have persistence? Do they have grit? What are their learning mindsets, right? So we learn more about the student, and the students identify who are the teachers that are most, their champion or their advocate, or who they go to if they have a problem. We now have a list of over, I don't know how many teachers I want to say it's
Well,
100.
almost every teacher was on the
The
list.
teacher is named as being a trusted adult for these students, and then the teachers also take this inventory and they identify which students have we, do we think could do more if we push them a little? Which ones do we think we could introduce to a dual enrollment class or an AP class or a career pathway? So all of this sort of thing is all a part of making Portrait of a Graduate.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing a lot with it. It is, as you said, an umbrella. But it is part of how our school's changing, right? What's different about school now than when I graduated.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions? Two more for me. One is you mentioned, you're working on a new structure for teacher evaluations. Is that being done with PCDA?
So HR will take care of that. We're gonna give them input on the instructional framework, and then they will, of course, coordinate that with them. Yes, absolutely.
Just identify.
So our part is making sure that we're clear about what is effective for teachers in the classroom, and then we'll partner with them to give them that information.
Okay, yeah, let's make sure that we're talking to leadership, because in the past, that process has kind of gone on independent of their input, and that doesn't work really well. So, learning from our past mistakes, obviously you weren't here, but we definitely want to have them involved in the process.
You have that in policy now. So it's the committee is identified in the policy.
Perfect. The other question I have is on metrics that you've been sharing with us, which I think are very helpful. Like, it's the first time we've had actual data and numbers actively being presented to us, which is helpful, but I think it would be great. And I don't know how often a lot of these metrics are tabulated, I guess. And some of the I write test quarterly, some of them are half year, all these things, but I think as we get the data, it would be great to have that in your monthly update and kind of visually see, all right, where have we been, what's our target, and where are we? Because on the surface, hearing that 78% of K through 3 kids are on reading level seems very low.
Benchmark, not reading level. Reading level is lower than the benchmark, remember? And so I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but there is a lot of confusion. People's charts say two things and we're trying to straighten that out. It's a tangle, but I agree that it's too low for our goals.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's benchmark, I mean, regardless, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think 1 out of 5 kids is not at their benchmark or their goal. And, I think it's helpful to see that data over time and then understand what are we doing for the 1 out of 5 kids that's not that benchmark. And, I know a lot of the answers, because I understand how it works, but I think it would be helpful for not only the board, but the public to understand how we're going about that, right? Like where are our deficits, our key deficits, and how are we, putting resource behind closing those
Yeah.
gaps?
So as we're creating our new school improvement plans, one of the things that we need are middle of year measurements and benchmarks. I brought you the middle of year for the K-3 literacy because that's one that's in our measurable strategic goals of where we can share that information at middle of year. There will be some, hopefully by next month, that we can share about 8th grade math that will match that often we don't get reader results. We only get those once a year. We won't get that until much later in the spring. Sometimes it's early next fall. They've been getting faster at it. So I totally agree. And that's the same thing that I keep saying to my team is how can we have some mid-year benchmarks on those? So thank you very much for noticing that. And I will bring it as soon as we get it.
I do actually have one more question, and it's about the preschool expansion. And I can only imagine that that's gonna help get our third graders.
The goal is that by that end of third
So-
grade, it will highly
That
impact
we can
us.
bring in
Over
4-year-olds
time.
and start working on these
Yeah.
things, and then that gets
Yeah.
our third graders ahead of the game. I just, with someone with a fourth grader that struggled in reading, who went home in kindergarten during COVID, I feel like we're still experiencing some of those ripple effects. And so I'm really glad that we'll be having.
Yeah, I
more
believe it
kids
will have a
coming to
positive
school.
impact.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think also as you look at some of the sophistication of the data, I know Caleb's not talking about this tonight, but I see he's here in the room, but even using those pre-ACT scores, while we understand that's a standardized test, right? We understand it's one measure, but it breaks out standards. So we can start telling, oh, the kids are missing, inferential language. That's an area we need to zip in on, or they're missing the standard, right? That's the part that teachers, when they can see it, that's how you can help with the appropriate intervention. So when you see that that's happening throughout the system, and when you see that Treasure's doing that, and you've seen their exponential growth over the years with that focus, you need that data to be able to make.
Well, I also think like there's more data through grades too.
Yeah.
Since we've shifted to more standards-based grading, right? And so I think that could be used as almost a real-time metric to see every time there's a report card, how many kids are 3 or above, and how many kids are below that on different standards, and monitor those over time, right? Because we have that, that's, you don't have to force a kid to take another test for that, right?
Right.
And since we're not, it shouldn't be arbitrary, like, okay, did this kid get an A? It's, does the child reach standard, right?
And I believe that we will have that for 4th and 5th grade beginning next year. And then our goal would be to have K-3 the next year after.
That's a more aligned, consistent report card, which is great, because that's the whole point of the parent aligned report cards, is so that parents can see not just an aggregate, but they could see individually what a student might need some extra support with. And then we can partner at home, for some kids, it's as simple as doing games at home. For others, it takes more intervention, but when you can show a tutor, or when you are looking at that to help, you know exactly what to do early on. For more practice, right? It's always about practice. Just like our athletes, same kind of thing. All practice. Excellent. Very good. Thanks, Stacy. That was excellent. For someone who's only been here a semester, it's pretty incredible. Like I said, everything she's wrapped her arms around. Thanks, Tricia. You can keep moving. We can keep moving. All right, you ready for me?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. All right. So, always, this is our why, that graduation day. That's what we're always zeroing in on. Every child, seeing them cross that stage, throw their head up in the air, and know that they've had a successful experience. So the district's vision and mission, of course, we're trying to align everything always to the vision and mission. So the mission is to inspire and support students equitably to achieve their academic and social potential. What does that mean? That means you're looking at their grades, but it also means you're looking at the whole child. You're looking at You know, how are we doing? Do we have a friend at school? You know, do we have somebody to go to if we have a problem? So that's the wellness piece. We also have, the vision, which is that we are a student-centered district. So that whole child philosophy is a national definition, but we know as a board and as a community, if we make decisions based on our students being safe, supported, engaged, challenged, and healthy, we're going to have a more robust, effective system for the kids. So in the district, we have the strategic pillars, and we really do try to align our initiatives, our efforts towards these. So these were community and board directives, and then this is what we are always aiming towards. And then you see the path, right? Each year you see movement towards these things. The core values are also aligned. That's the next slide. So academic success, leadership, personnel, communication, community alliances are always at the forefront. And then each team in each division is looking at those things as they are writing their strategic goals and initiatives. What I like working in the district is the next slide is that we have that clear vision. It's easier to work in a place where you have a clear vision and a clear mission. You know what direction you're headed in, you know the target. And you know our purpose is to create the conditions for staff and student success, always. So we're always worried about safety, worried about becoming, you know, a strong unit, culture, and then performance, our outcomes. We are working this year on that strategic plan document so that all of these, areas can be aligned. And we do have a governor's office of planning and budget, which Oleg has identified as the preferred method for a strategic plan. So we are using all of our, we are taking all of the things that we've been working on, putting it into this plan. So sometime this spring, we won't be changing the mission and vision. They'll remain just like our core values and our initiatives. But we are going to get down to that point of a work plan. So that annual work plan will be easier for us to monitor on a dashboard. So you're going to see that coming up. And then one of the things, Wendy, your question makes me think of this, right? We're living in one of the most transformative times in the history of education. We each have a chance to help shape the future. So everybody in the room, this is what we're all working to do in a way that supports and bolsters the need of our young people. I've asked Carolyn to come in and kind of talk about student services as well. So I'm going to have her sit here with us. And on this next slide, you can see the pictures. This is a little partnership with Culture City. This is one of the little tools they use to help kids with self-regulation, self-monitoring. You kind of watch the fish in this tube, right? This is a little manipulative that they have just to help kids kind of get centered. And then, of course, that small group instruction, always so important. Carolyn, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Yeah, perfect. So, I won't read this, but really is our mission and vision, and make sure students are supported and safe in our school district. Next. So I'm going to talk about we have 4 key priorities this year. 2 of them fall under student services. So the first one is implementing the wellness plan. So, we want to take the wellness plan that we developed through our STA and get it out to pre-K through 12th grade.
So these are some of those hotel areas that we were talking about. So these are all part of Portrait of the Graduate. How do you measure empathy? How do you know if a child is demonstrating empathy? How do you know if they have social engagement? How do you know if they're demonstrating ethical responsibility, right? These are all part of that Portrait of the Graduate, but it's not just about your academics. It's about all of the things that make up a great citizen.
So there's competencies under each area, and that's what our wellness plan is aligned to. The next one. So part of the wellness plan, I got a grant from the state to implement some extra materials for our teachers, so they have an extra easy way to teach these skills. So we met with a committee across the district, and we ended up with Move This World. So per the new guidelines, when adopting materials, we've got to go through this process. So I'll have 2 open Zoom meetings. They'll be in English and Spanish for the community to come on and ask questions about Move This World. There's a link there. And then if there's any questions that they have, they can email Face. And then I'll bring that feedback back to the forward in February, and hopefully we'll approve that for us to move forward.
So these are video-based lessons available to K-12 that move through those competencies and just help the, the teacher is the guide on the side. They don't have to make up every single lesson. They get some support through a vetted curriculum. So
And I did put some links in here so you can look at them later. I'm not going to show them, but so you can see what they are. They're a lot of teacher hits play. They ask a question about how do you feel today? Then they stop the video and then the teacher can ask the question. There's little activities. They're like 1 minute to 5 minutes, something real quick, which is nice. And then the other,
How are you communicating the Zooms to everyone?
so once it's approved, we have a training through Move This World that will.
No, sorry, so you're having two communities.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, so Face is gonna help me with that, they're gonna put a flyer on the website.
and push out.
And then push it out through,
Newsletter.
Yeah, I'd say that
Lori will push it out.
probably do that.
And not, printed one that goes in the back.
No, through, Swift Quick Well. And then the last one is the equity policy and implementing our equitable outcomes in the pre-K through 12 system. So just a couple highlights of things that we are doing with the equity. We meet with our Inspiring and Supporting All Students Equitably Committee. We have met twice this year. We have one more in February, beginning of February. We have our outside equity partnership, and their report should be done any day now. So we'll be looking at that with that committee and incorporating their recommendations into our procedures that are known to the policy. Also, Dr. Gilday talked about ELS that we're doing at the high school with our insight cards. We implemented MLL walkthroughs, tier 1 walkthroughs with the principal, our ESL coach and myself, and our MTSS coordinator. We're doing those in all the schools now, 2 to 3 times a year. We're on the second round. And then we're also working with someone to create some equity modules for the district, so all the teachers can get trained on educational equity. Those are my 2. Any questions on those?
Who's working on the equity modules?
Yeah, Dr. Omalara, Dr. Gilday met her. She's an equity champion out of the East Coast, and she is working on those modules for us.
She runs a group called Thrive, really positive. She's a really,
She studied at Harvard and.
very good common sense, non-extremist sort of ways of describing and identifying what kinds of barriers kids face and how to use them to test it. So she's someone that I think our staff would love if they all got to meet her. They've gotten some chances to.
Yeah, she has done some focus groups with some different groups throughout.
And that's all free. That's just free partnerships that we've been able to talk through.
Who pays for it?
It's free. She's doing it for
But
us.
I mean,
No, but who's
somebody
paying
has
for
to be funding.
She's doing it for her nonprofit.
it? Right.
When did we met?
Yeah. So then
Oh,
there's-
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. YouTube, yeah.
Please
sorry.
read it.
Yeah.
But
She's been around for a long time. She's not brand so. Yeah, I can find out if she's funded.
Yeah, I just think we want to be conscious of
We do.
when we've had a lot of discussions around this, and there's definitely a difference between equity as school district and education defines it with, I would say, a liberty rather than the equity that's been politicized and it's part of some other some other agendas. So I think we want to be very conscious of who's funding these individuals, where it comes from, what is the content, and make sure that it's compliant with the state law and the mission and vision of this district.
Yeah, I would get that.
That would be my comment.
She had a 4-page, right? It was as simple as 4
Yeah.
pages, and it's
Just
just
very basic.
exactly what you would hope. And so that was kind of how this partnership started, was they just said, we have these 4 pages, can you just make these into a module? They're so good. She just gets that she's from, I can't remember what country she immigrated from. But she's lived the life of, you know, being an adult student, being new to the country, and then really thriving, you know, really doing well.
Perfect, thanks. Thank you.
And I'll just give a little update. Family community engagement is working really hard, and they've been using a lot more data and analytics to try to identify what are the things that are going to help with building trust, uniting and informing our community, and aligning proactive communication. So I think the whole team's here. We ended up with any questions, but they've been really trying to streamline those things that we do to make sure they're monitoring whether or not things are making a difference. So the monthly newsletter, celebration in the news, has gotten a lot of positive feedback. They've had about 175 articles already this year, halfway through the year, which is exciting. They've had some feature stories as well as a short podcast that has grown in membership. So that's been kind of fun.
Can I ask a quick follow-up about this?
Yeah.
Have we cleaned up a little bit the issue that I know came up with meetings regarding the soil mitigation and where information was posted and timing on, I know timing on that was one issue, but where and which newsletters, like, so we can guide caretakers into like this idea of where they go to get the district information, where they go to get the school information, because you have some families with lots of kids, and do they have to go to one or two places?
It's always, I will tell you.
I know Heidi was
Yeah.
part of that.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Do you see that little, the little icon that's on the little left there that's in the red? That was our way of trying to streamline that information, and again, really focusing on the district. So, you can see it will. This is
Red block will
an
always be
image that we can
You can click.
send to our PTOs, and to the PCEF for them to include in their letter, so it drives back to the website, both in the podcast, the newsletters, the features, the celebrations, trying to streamline that.
Okay, yeah, because I think you were talking about having it be depending on the PTOs, which are not, they were getting a lot of information out, but some information that maybe was really imperative that the district got out wasn't necessarily always showing up in that, so.
Right, and what we
Holding
try
that
to
kind
do
of
is
accountability.
link everything to, like evergreen links, you know, so that it's not like, that they have to be changing this every time there's something new, but that we could send, hey, here's a reminder that this needs to go, you know, check out this, event or something that's on this page.
So this is basically an interactive box, right?
Yeah.
So people can then click, which will help, right? Because that
Yeah.
in and of itself provides a container, which we haven't had before.
We just have addressed what happened with the soil.
Okay, so we have a container now, based on that feedback, which was great. And then we have also been a part of a national PTA communications family community engagement team fellowship. So we've had 6 months of additional training and work with what are the best practices nationally from a PTA lens as well as communication lens. So that's been really helpful. The next slide shows that we have, you know, a little bit more about, again, the monthly newsletter. And what we're trying to do is the monthly newsletter. If you click on an article, it will go back again to the website. So it's being generated from that news and then aggregated once a month. Right, so we're actually having things posted as they're happening, and then we give kind of that summary. So the monthly newsletter is basically a summary of all those stories that have occurred over the month. We've not done that before, so it's a new thing for us. We think that's helpful. And then we've had some, in the monthly newsletter, some key themes. Each month you have the superintendent letter, you have a faculty or staff feature, which has been really fun. A wellness guide, so that goes right along with the wellness curriculum. So if a family wants to do something at home to reinforce the theme of the month, they can do that with some hints and tips and questions you can ask around the dinner table. Always student success focused, and then community partners have a chance to put information in, or we have a chance to talk about those partnerships, which is great. So our views, our next slide, our views have been of almost 3,000. Views on these newsletters, so we feel like people are at least clicking into them, whether they're clicking on their email that they get at home in their K-12 Swift newsletter, whether they're community member clicking on the website. It is seeming to be getting out. So that's great news. With social media, we do push information on student success and district activities to Facebook and to Instagram. And we do have some analytics that the team watches to see reach. The things that are most popular are always related to students, student activities and student successes. The podcast has been a fun sort of new experiment. They were a little long. We're trying to get them shorter. And we know that a podcast is certainly not the only way to get information about the district or about a program. But for those people that do want to hear a little bit more, it's a great kind of library of resources to build over time. And you can see, just like all social media, it kind of slowly grows. You have 5 people, then all of a sudden you have 30 people, and then you have 75. So it's kind of fun to sort of watch that grow. And then we can also kind of see what are the trends, what are the topics that are the most helpful for families. And with the website, we do always want to make sure that from a district lens, we're always going to see the district website as a primary hub, right? That's our digital hub for communications. So we know that not everybody loves to go to a website, but it is the most reliable, most up-to-date, most fact-based place to grab your information on what's happening in the district. But families also are getting a lot of information from their classroom teachers and from their schools. And we know that the teacher is the primary communicator. Everyone likes to hear from their teacher. Then they like to hear from their principal. And then they want to, after that, they'll kind of check out what's happening in the district. And we do know, that when we query families, believe it or not, families still say they like the email, right? So if it's an emergency, they want a text. So if there's an emergency with a bus, we want a phone call or a text. If it's an emergency, that we need to come pick up our child, we want a text. But if it's just like a reminder on the parent-teacher conference or a reminder of a concert, please don't do a text. Just send us an email and we're happy with that. And we'll continue to query that because that could change every couple of years. So we'll continue to ask that question, but right now email seems to be still the most popular request from families. And then the FACE team is always looking at how to improve, always looking at, we have everything from a media form where the media can send us a form if they'd like to meet with us, or they can call us. But we're finding lots of ways to get information back and forth. And they are, every one of these members, we've got Heidi, we've got Colton, and we've got Eric Escobar. They all take these roles very seriously on family and community engagement and really supporting our families in English and in Spanish, trying to have everything translated and really trying to have messages that help to unify us and unite us as a community. So in summary, for our mid-year report, we're working on the wellness plan. That's K-12. That's all students get at least some access and information. Families can see that once a month in the district newsletter, the theme of the month, and the theme is consistent across the schools and across the grades. Educational equity, still working on ensuring those procedural elements are aligned to the policy, and then also the action plan, the work plan. We are working to acclimate our academic system, and you can hear how we're creating those systems of support for student success. And then how are we redesigning as we're thinking about these new buildings and new grade level configurations. And then just like in the beginning of the year, you'll know we're successful when all of our student groups are achieving at consistent high levels. And they are also reporting a high level of engagement, belonging, and support, which are part of those wellness indicators. That our educators, our staff, and our administration are all feeling valued, heard, and appreciated, and that our communications are timely, frequent, clear, accurate, and they spell any myths and misinformation promptly. So always working on those things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, business. Unless there's questions for superintendent.
No.
Okay.
This is really quick.
All right, yeah, this is really quick. So business, our big push in the last year, plus a few months I've been here, is just systems, automating systems. We've been able to evaluate the software and what's built out, what's not built out. We've got a goal of working to provide users with the data at the fingertips of the schools and in the departments. We're in the process of building out the accounting system, as I mentioned, for full functionality which it wasn't all the way built out. Some of those examples are P card transactions, transparency, bank reconciliations. Budget set up, we're able to automate a lot of those things that, for example, transparency, which right now takes us about 10 hours a quarter to process and submit with the state auditor. It'll become about a 25-minute process. And so that's gonna save us a lot of time once things are set up. We are in the process, along with HR, adding on a component called Content Manager, which will help us go electronic and processing and storing documents. So rather than go to filing cabinets and looking at the check or multiple checks from previous years, we're able to just have it right in the system electronically as part of that. And so, and then as we're going through this, we're looking process by process to improve each process. Some of the things, again, we're looking at bank recs, transparency, the budget books being automated. We got an extension to get that in. And the annual financial report, the ACFR is also setting that up to start to be automated. So it'll be a book type setting like the budget book. And then cash entry automation. When I arrived, we had to make all the cash entries by hand. And so we're automating that, so we don't have to do that as natural as we do between funds. So those are some of the things that we're working on behind the scenes, so.
We also want to recognize the board. You've hit 6 years in a row of master board certification. So you've gotten through levels 1 through 4 as a board. Congratulations. And now you're advanced, you're in level 6. And the new Power Up that will start next year has advanced courses for us. So it won't be the same reminders every day. We'll actually have some new advanced content with advanced quizzes for all of us. So we will be able to move through that. But you were recognized at the board conference the first weekend in January as having beat that. And you have the plaque up there to show all 6 years. So congratulations. And then we are also, as Randy mentioned, we're hoping for that master board or budget designation as well. The Meritorious Budget Award. So that is a very clear narrative as to how the budget is developed, prioritized, how it's aligning resources to the needs. And it is a great document for community. It really takes the budget out of financial language and puts it in more lay people terms. All right, now for the fun part.
So just a brief overview of legislative stuff. Today's the first day of the session. There's over 400 bills already open. There'll be more to be opened. I'm going to say, go on a limb and say 70 to 80% of those probably deal with education in some form of capacity. From a number standpoint, we are expecting, the state's expecting a decrease in state revenue compared to prior years. Governor's recommendation on the WP was 5%. I really don't think it's going to go above that. Overall, even though some other groups have requested 10 to 13%, I think it'll still be at the 5% overall. We are getting experience. The board's aware of a significant increase in our property insurance premium. For those that aren't aware, we're part of the risk management pool, which is the state of Utah. For example, we pay $100 per car, we pay $150 per bus, which we'd all like to be on that plan. It's an annual amount. And so they are working with the legislature to provide some funding to help with some of the premiums that have gone up. We were slated to be sixfold, now it looks like it'll be threefold. They'll probably run us a couple $100,000 just for the property insurance premium, just because of values. The legislature is in the budget bill looking at certain programs to reconsider the funding mechanism for those. They've been what we call below the line programs. Some of those are dual immersion, which we receive, I think, $270,000. We've got BTS, which we receive, I think around $60,000, $50,000. Digital teaching and learning. So we've got some programs there. We receive some funds. There's discussion of repurposing those or putting those in the WPU or leaving those alone. So the public ed appropriation is going to pass. They're going to pass the base budget without these items being funded. And they're going to reconsider these items during the legislative session. So our cost of that, depending on what they do with them, could be anywhere between 150,000 to 400,000, depending on what they're doing as far as loss of revenue. Senate Bill 86, just to bring your attention to this, I don't think this is going to affect us in the very near future, but they are proposing a cap on lease revenue bonds at $30 million is where it's at now. I think that'll be negotiated That's really a trigger for a couple of districts that went to these revenue bonds after geo bonds got defeated. And so legislators, some weren't happy about that, and so they're addressing some of those things. Representative Perucci has House Bill 173. There's actually two bills that deal with the referendum requirement on any kind of tax increase. And so what that would look like, the word on the street right now, what that would look like is if you pass a budget in June, planning on a tax increase in August, then during that time, there'd be a referendum. You mail that out to the voters and say, do you support this or not support this? And if they don't support that, then you can't raise the tax above the certified tax rate. You would still capture growth. So really, that's a big push, which would take, decision-making authority away from the local school boards, right? And really cripple all districts, to be honest. So it does not have a Senate sponsor. I don't know if we don't know quite yet if that means the Senate's not on board, or if that means that it's gonna be one of those last minute things that they try to push through. And so we'll keep an eye on that. There's also House Bill 161 that's got a referendum in it as well. And then Senate Bill 29 affects T&T notices, change the notice to include total revenue being raised by tax increase and the purpose that revenue is being used, which, is explained anyway in the budget. So it's not a big deal. So those are a few things of the 400 bills that are going on. And the next slide, we're gonna let Heidi take it.
The Perucci bill, if any of you have ever lived in New York, that's kind of how New York does their annual school board budget that goes out to vote every year to the public, a yay or a nay. So it would be, other states have done something like that.
It would basically be, it'd be like the preschool program we offer, right? The all-inclusive preschool program. Districts would not be able to fund something like that. The state doesn't fund it. There's no way for the local board to raise additional funds in order to provide programs like that and to be intuitive and advanced. So.
Is that, what about on commitments that we made for contracts?
Exactly, you gotta go back. Depending on how they work it.
Yeah, it really depends on how the bill comes out, even if it goes through. There's that discussion. There's also a discussion which doesn't affect us, this piece of it, but there's the guarantee that several districts realize. And they receive guarantee funds, for example. So if they only receive a certain amount per student, they're guaranteed they'll receive a larger amount per student. The state makes up the difference for those districts. And so there's probably 25 districts that are in that boat. But if they charge a certain voted leeway, they're guaranteed to generate a certain amount of money. And if they don't generate that, the state picks up the difference. Well, there's a 5-year hold harmless on those rates. So a district that has a voted leeway can set that rate for 5 years, does not have to raise it. But to maintain the guarantee after that in the 6th year, they have to increase it. Well, then if there's a referendum saying you can't increase that, then they lose the guarantee money as well. So there's still a lot of pieces that gotta be figured out. There's a lot of concern with this bill. So again, but there's no Senate sponsor. It's not gaining a lot of traction at this point. So.
The JLC, the Joint Legislative Council, took a position of opposition on both of those schools.
Yeah.
That's good. So my portion of updating on some of the legislation are those things without the big dollar marks behind them, but that impact public education and Park City School District just the same. Want to say just kind of in the background is last year's Senate Joint Resolution 10, which is about a constitutional amendment to remove the designation of income tax for public education. And I didn't say earmark because an earmark would mean that all that money went into public education. It's just been a designation that money goes there, and is the companion piece to that was if this passes, it removes the income or the taxes on food. So that I think is in the background of a lot of conversations, even though it might not be on the forefront, but in the attempts of managing if you support this, and can we get some support for that constitutional change that is argued would bring a lot of flexibility, and argued by others that it would be concerning for public education in terms of funding. So the others are falling into, some big themes that we're really seeing nationwide that would have an impact on us here in Park City and across the state. As Randy said, there are the 421 bills today on the first day. I've heard ranges I'm trying to track the education related ones that look like they're going to get some traction. It's a pretty stunning number of education related bills, and really trying to put a lens on, what ultimate impact it will have on students. And, what problem is it seeking to address? Is there evidence that supports the solution that is being put forth would actually make the difference that we wanted to make, that kind of thing. So the first theme is school safety. We see a number of bills related to strengthening our schools. There's a school threat assessment penalty amendments that would further punish those people for making false claims, those hoaxes that have been going around. There is a school safety amendment by Representative Wilcox and Ibsen. Actually, they did both of these that would increase training for our SROs and establish a school guardian program that would have armed personnel in each school.
You can't raise taxes to pay for it. Right?
The proposal is to, compensate that guardian at like $500.
Are these just volunteer citizens that are gonna show up to be?
It could be that far. Okay.
Guardian angel.
Yeah.
Same program.
The next category I have is under like transparency, parental rights. And there are quite a few in there, but of particular interest, of course, we've been following the sensitive materials ever since 2022, when House Bill 374 was passed. House Bill 29 is the sensitive material review amendments. That is, it's sponsored by Representative Ivory and Senator Weiler. It really prioritizes that interpretation of the bright line rule, that the ability to take an excerpt from a material and deem it pornographic or obscene, and therefore going into a different category of consideration for school districts. It differentiates between objective and subjective sensitive materials, because that has been a confusing aspect of the interpretation. But it does, again, prioritize that over assessing any material in its entirety and looking for those three components of, is this designed to be erotic or purely interest? Is it violating standards of the community, and does it have any serious value? It also
Can
has,
I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Is it still on the table that if one district determines
that is in the
then
language.
the whole state has to abide by it?
Yeah, the specific language is that if, and this has to do with the determination of sensitive materials, which
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It cannot be on school grounds, right? Right now, the determination is at least 3 school districts, or at least 2 school districts and 5 charter schools. The concerns that were raised during interim had to do with the number of students and citizens that represents. It also sets the oversight for sensitive materials with the Office of the Legislative General. Another with the transparency is some public education program modifications by Representative Carucci and Senator John Johnson. That's House Bill 82. It does quite a few different things, including different ways of looking at complaints for educator licenses and different adding some additional opportunities for people to meet on a Saturday. So there's quite a few different things that are there, that some additional tracking on absenteeism and excused absences, that kind of thing. The diversity, equity, and inclusion, I really appreciate what was was stated earlier before, is kind of separating what the intention, what we do with educational equity in our district and throughout the state versus what has become quite politicized. This one, House Bill, 261, it's called Equal Opportunity Initiatives by Representative Hall and Senator Keith Brooke. Would prohibited what they're saying is discriminatory DEI practices. It's a lot focused on higher education, but it does trickle down into K-12 trainings, setting up systems for reporting complaints, that kind of thing. It is on the docket tomorrow as I think the second bill that's going to be heard in the very first House Education bill. Our House Education Committee, my apologies. Privacy in Women is House Bill 257, which is titled Sex-Based Designation for Privacy, Anti-Bullying, Women's Opportunities by Representative Kira Berkman, Senator Dan McKay. It's a bill that would limit who can go into gender designated public restrooms if they are receiving federal funds. And
Is this a trans
yes.
thing?
Representative Lyman has a similar bill. There are a couple bills that are being talked about that don't necessarily have numbers yet with cell phones and absenteeism, social media, and then there are also some bills that we're kind of looking for, some tax credits for educators, and maybe even a funding stipend for student teachers to really encourage our newer educators to get that experience before they become a teacher of record. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we will move on to 4.01, which is the calendar discussion. Mary, you want to join us?
Thank you guys for having us this evening. With me this evening, I have Golden Goshen from Ecker, thank you. I'm not there anymore now.
Beloved sixth grade math teacher.
Exactly. Krista Engel is here, second grade at Trailside, and Shannon Hayes is counselor at the high school. So we just wanted to kind of have a discussion with you about some possibilities. We did discuss this with Wendy and last week, and it was suggested that we go ahead and present to all of you. I do want to start this off though by saying that we as teachers know that being in person with students is the best option for students at all times. And what we saw, what we want to look at today is just what we experienced last year and maybe some changes that maybe we could make moving forward as the snow starts to fly. So for next school year, just looking at the calendar really quick, the changes for teachers will be that we will add 2 days before the teacher contract days. So the first contract day for teachers will be on August 14th, as opposed to Friday, August 16th. That will fulfill our requirement in our agreement, in our compensation agreement for teachers. There will be no changes for students or families. The first day of school for students remains as August 21st. And the last day of school for students and teachers, June 6th, with graduation also being that day. Makeup snow days, the way it is in the calendar right now, is the week after school is out. So, and we'll talk a little bit about this a little bit later, but the state requires that we have 5 makeup snow days in the calendar built in. Either we put it at the end, like Dr. Gilday has done in the past for last year and for this coming calendar, or we build them in to the calendar. That would also change our graduation date. It would also change our last day of school for next year if we wanted to take a look at something like that. And then there are similar calendars set up where these 5 makeup snow days are at the end of the school year, after school's over, after graduation. So on the next slide, we can see that what we currently have in place are those 5 days at the end of the school year set aside as makeup days. And we do have a professional day for teachers in March that students don't attend school, but we have professional development that day that we can use as a makeup day. We definitely want to try to keep that in there so that we have that option. I believe right now it is on March 8th. On the next calendar, I don't know if you can really see this, it's on the website, but this is basically what the calendar looks like at the moment. With those end of school graduation dates of June 6th, June 5th, and June 4th. On the following slide, you can see where Dr. Gilday has put together a calendar for next year that I don't believe that this is on the website. But you can see where June 9th through 13th is set aside for makeup snow days. If that was to occur, we do still have March 14th in 2025 that we can utilize as an emergency day if we have a power outage again or a snow day. And so we do have some options there. So moving on, just want to take a look at what the history is of our makeup snow days. Living here in Park City for 25 years, this is my 26th year here. I can count on one hand how many times we've actually had a snow day, but they do happen. And for some reason, we had 900 inches of snow last year. So we had 2 makeup days. We had one for the power outage. So one was really only for the snow. We used that March teacher PD day for the power outage day, and then we hit March 31st and we had a snow day. And so the only option we had at that point, and because we didn't have an emergency virtual learning option, we have an in-person option only, that we had to make that day up on that Monday of June 5th. So taking a look at what happened, since, like I said, we'd already used that makeup snow day. Dr. Gilday applied for a waiver, I believe twice, from the state and was denied both times, and was given the answer of that we either needed extra snow days built into the calendar, which is why she added the extra 5 days at the end of the calendar, or we need an emergency virtual learning option. June 5th was set as the makeup day, June 6th for teachers only. So this is what the actual data was. And I have a couple of more points that just came in not too long ago, but you can see that the majority of students did not come to school. So we have 387 students enrolled at Trailside, 251 were absent. Jeremy Ranch had 460 enrolled, 235 were absent. Harley's, I didn't get those numbers to you in time before 3 o'clock, sorry. Harley's had 417 enrolled and 150 were absent. And then McPolin had 416 students enrolled and 238 absent. Edgar Hill had 712 students enrolled and 555 students were absent that day. Treasure and Park City High School had so little students in each class that most teachers could not even take roll. So we ended up with that Monday of, okay, what do we do with the students? Now, other school districts, go ahead, that have an emergency virtual learning option are currently South Summit, Jordan Canyon, Salt Lake, Murray, and Granite around us. And so what we would like to just at least take a look at moving forward of what are the options. So Jen Riggs, who's a 4th grade teacher at Jeremy Ranch, put together just kind of a mock example of what a packet would look like for elementary students. Obviously, we would not have the ability to do computers or iPads, things like that, since they don't go home. But I'm happy to pass this around. You guys can just kind of take a look at what that would entail for elementary students. We can keep the March PD as an option for a makeup snow day. So of course, if we have a snow day before March 8th this year or March 14th for next year, then we can always use that day as a makeup snow day. And then, of course, teachers would still need to make up that day themselves because they're still contracted. But at least for families and for students, that would not impact, students. However, if we have an anomaly like we did last year and we need a second day, that's where our problems lie. And like I said, I've never seen this happen except for last year in Park City, but it happened. And the problem was that on that, June 5th, that we had, so little students that we didn't get anything academically done. It was just impossible to really get academics done, and testing is done, computers are turned in, all the books are turned in, desks are put away. It just wasn't even possible. So we could do K-5 to do packets sent home at the beginning of the year. The question came up from Wendy, which is a valid question. She didn't want to put anything more on teachers. However, I have many teachers that I have spoken to that would be more than happy to help put some packets home. And you would really even only need like a 4th grade packet like that for the entire school district. You wouldn't need to do an individual packet per school unless they wanted to do something like that. But this could be something that was sent home. And kind of going back to what Stacy Briggs was talking about earlier, we do a lot of standards-based unit lesson planning during the school year. So Katie McGinn also had pointed out to me that, for example, if we had January, February, March, and April that are our main months, really January, February, March of snow, that we know what standards, for example, that 4th grade would be covering during that time period, so we could focus our efforts on writing a packet that was specific to that standard, and the standard being the umbrella, not necessarily the individual lessons. We could obviously offer Zoom or Google Classroom during that day as well to students and work with them either as groups or one-on-one. And 6th through 12th grade would pivot to online learning through Canvas and Zoom. The other option, like I mentioned earlier, would be to alter the existing calendars and to build in those 5 makeup days into the calendar. You would need to extend the school year by 1 week and change the date of graduation. So taking a look at moving forward, what we learned was that, and I don't mean to make the statement lightly, because it is a very true statement. And I can vouch for these teachers sitting behind me that teachers and students would have accomplished 100% more instruction and curriculum time using an emergency virtual learning option on March 31st of last year versus having an in-person school as a makeup day on June 5th. We just realistically, it's just not feasible to have a day or any makeup snow days after the school year is over. And like I said, the only way to, if you did not want to do a virtual learning option, would be to change the entire calendar. As teachers, we do feel that what it is best for students is to keep that March PD day as an option for the makeup snow day. So we still have that in place. And if we need an additional day, a second day, that we would have an emergency virtual learning option for that day and not wait until the end of the school. Any question?
We also have the 2-hour delay.
Correct.
Opportunity.
And what happened on that March 31st,
Right.
unfortunately, that March 31st was a Friday. And so we couldn't have a 2-hour delay on that day. So.
Can I make a suggestion? What about?
Sure.
We have to have we learned our lesson, that we have to have those makeup days in the calendar for statutory reasons, but why can't we just put in another PD day that is after the ski season? So like we would say April 30th is professional development day, for example. And then, so we have an extra snow. I mean, I don't think we've ever had more than one snow day a year.
Right.
Since you've been like in 25 years, right? Except for this year, and it happened to be power outage on Friday. Right, but like, what if we just take another Friday sometime in the spring, it's already a half day, and say, okay, that's a PD day. We start school a day earlier.
We could, and that would change the.
And then we have 2 days built in, yeah, but I mean,
Mhm.
you know, starting school on August, you know, whatever it is, August 21st, which is a Wednesday versus August 20th.
Right.
Is pretty inconsequential for, I would imagine, the vast majority of people. I think they would all prefer that than having to come back on June 7th or 9th or whatever, yeah, because,
If they're not.
yeah, I mean, I think
Right.
that's probably a better
Right,
solution, because then they're actually in school learning from teachers rather than having a packet at home, which they'll lose after like a couple of days anyways. And-
And then there's some kids, students.
Right. Well, I was just gonna say
It's
the
not
ones,
possible.
right, like, they'll just be a free day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think this is helpful, I think I'd love to see from a calendar perspective, like, okay, if we make 24, 25, and 25, 26, start a day earlier and add in an extra Friday PD day. You know,
Do you do
or a
PD?
Friday snow day.
Right now, teachers are back on the 16th. Or on your proposal.
Well, we have to
You're
add those
back-
2 days, in.
back
So
at
if we
14,
added, right,
for
so
contract reason.
if we added that day, if we added a PD day in April, then. Yeah, we would have to take a look and make sure that we have those two covered, but that would cover one of those,
The teachers would still start the same day.
So
right?
what?
The teachers would start the same day, it's the school would start a day earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then, yeah, I was just saying.
Well, teachers
We
would
go
still
back
have to start
Yeah.
a day early.
A day early.
Still have to start on the 15th.
Because they need all those
They
days.
still need
Yeah,
that.
so let's look at a couple different information.
So question though, for Dr. Gilday, for the state. If we were to add in just that one PD, are we fulfilling the requirements by the state? Because the requirement was that we put 5 days in.
Yeah, we can still have those snow days at the end of the year, but we just know we're never gonna use them because we're never gonna have more than 2 snow days.
We
If
just have
we
them.
do, then we address it, you know.
If we do,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it hasn't happened very often.
Why wouldn't the same logic apply to still doing the emergency home learning packet, knowing we're never gonna use it, but at least then we don't have people with this uncertainty of whether they're actually gonna have these days of school at the end of the year or not? It's like,
Well, I think
we can add the second TD.
Well, I think it
But also
depends.
do the home learning packet.
Well, I think it depends on, I mean, look, we haven't had 2 snow days in 25 years. We have global warming and, you know, like, well, my point is, well, it's a philosophical question, right? The question is, do we want to make it so that that counts as a school day, or do we want to build in an extra day, right? Those are the 2 options.
Well, I think we can, what I'm saying, I think we can do both. I think we can combine them. I think we can add a PD day, knowing that the chances of us having more than 2 extra snow days are negligible. But if that were to happen, you know, so for some reason, snow knocks out power for 3 days. You know, we still have that home learning option, should we need it.
I mean, yeah, I think the question is it really a school day, right? Or do we look at, you know, other things that can be done
It's
after?
not a school day either way, right? It's not a school day if we have people come in the middle of June, because no.
Right, but what I'm saying is that the day that the calendar starts and stops is somewhat arbitrary. Right, like, you know, we're not in line with other places in the country, it's a very Utah-specific calendar. It is what it is, I think the question is, do we wanna have precedent where, you know, we're calling sitting at home doing the packet as a school day, or do we wanna say, okay, we learned our lesson, we need to have multiple days built in a year? And then, I mean, we could even do something different on a you know, let's say it's a Friday, and we don't need to use it right in April, or the April or May. Maybe it's a, you know, a service day or something like that, that's, you know, that's interesting. I hear what you're saying, I just think, like, I just have a bad taste in my mouth from what happened to education during COVID.
And I would not disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
And I think as teachers, we all feel the exact same way. But I think looking at this is like looking at apples to oranges, because during COVID, we were out, first of all, we had no idea what we were doing in the first place. So we were kind of learning as we went and trying to, Zoom, nobody had heard of Zoom before that. So, we're trying to reinvent the wheel as we're going during COVID, and then finally kind of get a little bit of, grasp on what is going on, and then it's June, so we're done, and then we come back in person in August. And the lapse of education during those 3 months, absolutely, nationwide, there's no question that all of us learned, our lessons from that. But equating that COVID to a 1 day emergency as a second day option, I don't think that academically would impact students, definitely not the same way as COVID. And it also would academically be more, like you said, if we ended up with 3 days or 4 days, academically, we're not going to get anything done at that end of the school year.
Yeah,
So-
I take the point, we all understand kids being in classrooms is the best option. I know no one's advocating a hybrid learning model or learning from home on a widespread basis. But, I think what we should be targeting is a calendar that parents and teachers and everyone can be sure that is the day when school is going to be done.
Right. Yeah, and being where we live, we have to anticipate more than that, right? So that's what we're trying to do here. And I think that you've heard this, because I have this discussion with you. I think my big concerns, I appreciate adding a day. I think we should add a PD day and another day that could be made up, because we all value in-person learning. And that's a good,
Absolutely.
I think that's a great option. In my head, I can't help but think of, and having been a teacher, it is better for the majority of the students undoubtedly to have at-home days. We're not worried about probably Ecker Treasure High School, right? We have access to all learning stuff. So we're really talking about elementary of us. Okay. Although those at those other levels, not all homes are the same. So my kid sitting down to do at home with the computer that we have set up and a great little office and all that is very different than a kid who's stuck at home with several siblings, parents, and where, finding the packet for the younger kid in elementary. And I think, as I shared my concern, and I appreciate that teachers are not pushing back on having to do an extra packet or create that ahead of time. But I wouldn't want that effort to be in place of the effort of figuring out how to have in-person learning. If we could readjust a calendar to prioritize that.
Sure.
And I think I'm very thoughtful. I'm thoughtful about the kids without lunch. I'm thoughtful about the kids who are not at home with a sharpened pencil, all of it.
Definitely.
And I appreciate that we can't cover everything, but I think it's worth nuancing a calendar for an extra day. In the outside chance, ironically, I've only lived here 6 years, and I think I've been here for every snow day that's existed in the last 25 years. I've seen it almost every other year since I've been here.
Right.
Yeah, so
Well, and realistically, like lunch and things like that, so students wouldn't get the lunch or the breakfast that they would have during the day, school day anyways.
yeah. if
Either
it's
way.
right,
If
but
they're
a
gonna- yeah,
B-Day, it's that other day, or I think of a
Right,
kid in the learning center or something that's not getting a benefit from
sure.
a packet. But I appreciate these numbers of June 6th was clearly not the right, that, we should learn from that.
Right,
And that's
because
what
what
you
we
do with
learned from that was that, okay, even our MLL students who are most vulnerable in this community is, they still would have gotten something, possibly something on March 31st if we had had a virtual learning option as compared to, we're gonna have a field day on June 5th. So, yeah, and I appreciate that, like you said, that suggestion of adding an extra day. into there, which we certainly could do. And then I would propose that we continue to do, you know, at least plan ahead in those events that we do have more than 2 days, whenever that might happen, if it ever happens.
All right, let's look into a couple of iterations, I guess, of the council. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we will go into the athletic program review.
Just wanted to give you a quick recap of some of the athletic events or athletic things that have happened over the, this was last year's, these are last year's numbers. Last year, we competed in 5A in Region 6. We've converted, we're now back in 4A, Region 10. But for last year, we had 1,406 active participants in our athletic clubs and activities on our campus. We had 23 different sports with 53 teams at the high school. We also had 7 activities. Those are the bands and the drama debate, theater, chat debate, all those things. We also have 5 club sports on our campus that are not necessarily associated with that. They're not sanctioned sports, but water polo, mountain biking, ice hockey, figure skating, sailing. They're under policy 946. Yeah. And our students, they thrive. I mean, you can see that the average GPA for our students that participate on our teams is about a 3.6. And we had 52 academic all-stars, all states last year. We also, last year, we were the winner of the Directors Cup. This is the athletic directors in 5A, they get together and they choose one school based on certain criteria, sportsmanship, winning, aptitude. We finished 5th last year. Yeah, that's right. In 5A, but we finished. So just so that you know that we're held very, we have a good reputation across the state.
We were the smallest, obviously, we were elected moving to 5A, and we were the smallest in enrollment by far. So to be 4th and 5th in the Des News and the UIAAA Directors Cup was pretty significant. It's a very big testament to our programs, to our kids.
And I think what the power of sports, before Jamie talks about coaching departments, really extracurriculars, if you get kids in their area of passion, the best learning happens, right? That is where you can truly learn resiliency. That's where you can truly work through adversity, learn how to communicate, be a part of a team. So when we're able to get 1,400 students out of 1,600 students in a extracurricular activity, an area of choice, an area of passion, great learning happens. And I think that that's why I'm such a big fan of what's happening in our schools. I also personally appreciate as a principal, the ability to contact coaches when you're dealing with discipline issues. One of my staples, as they know, is if I have an issue with the volleyball player, Matt's getting a call or a text, or Coach Monzingo in football, and the list goes on to soccer and other sports. Freshman basketball, you get to call to the principal. I have to help coach the freshmen. So sports and extracurriculars in general, think of theater or band, you're getting to watch kids in their best moments, their areas of passion, but also getting to see them go through the true trials of life that we're trying to prepare them for, so they're better adults. So the support that that the school board gives, and even prioritizing, reevaluating master plan, I hear Andrew talk about, like, these are big picture items that we've got to consider, is appreciated, and it's noted, and we keep looking for opportunities for improvement. And I know Jamie's going to talk a lot about what's happening for our students and our coaches.
I just want to, before we go to the next slide, I just want you to know that we have 20 head coaches, we have 7 directors, 59 assistant coaches, and we have 20 volunteers with our sports. I mean, so it is a community that take care of our kids.
Yeah, those are last year's numbers. To be clear too, 1406 is not individual students. Those are roster spots occupied. So the actual number of individuals is less than that, because some kids occupy music or play multiple sports. And, you know, you can see with those numbers on any given year, with 20 head coaches, 7 directors, 59, those are paid, 59 paid assistant coaches and 20 volunteers. You know, we can push around 100, so we are the biggest department in the school, by far. We can go on to the coaching requirements.
I feel like the mountain bike team alone had more than 20 volunteers.
Yeah, they have quite-
The mountain
I
bike team
couldn't,
alone.
I got this year, last year was a little, well, last year was still a lot. Sometimes I can't, because of club being posted, I can't count all of them, because I don't know all of them. But
We
yes.
both had girls and the.
Yeah, their numbers were
Yeah.
huge. This year, their numbers were huge.
And they won state.
Yes, they did. Yeah, awesome. It's good to be back on top of that.
Yeah.
That was a good group.
And
It's good.
the culture of the team is really amazing.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's amazing to have that in the town we live in. And I know in the years past that our numbers have been a little smaller, like Corner Canyon, our little peak, but 200 something kids. So for our numbers to be back up was really good, especially during the time. So on our coaching requirements, I just wanted to review this real quick in case the things that you might know or might not know. Every coach is required to do this every year. Obviously, the background check is done by the district. They don't have to do the background check every year once it's in the system. This is all, we track this all on Register My Athlete. There's a coaching portal side that it actually goes into. First aid, CPR, and AED training, they need to be current. That's a 2 years, valid for 2 years. They must do the yearly concussion training on the National Federation of High Schools. That's a state. Well, I mean, all these are state that are then mandated through the UHSAA. The UHSAA is the one that's required for this. So they put that tracking then on the LEA, and Register My Athlete's what's used for that. So they must go through yearly concussion training. They need to do yearly child sexual abuse prevention training, which there is a class on FHS that's pretty decent. If they are a teacher here at the district, they also satisfy that requirement through the district trainings. Some of our coaches will also do safe sport through the United States Olympic Committee. It's actually, the last time I took it was about 2 hours long, so it is a little bit more significant than anything we do through NFHS or the district. It's pretty good. They're required to do yearly bullying, hazing, and harassment retaliation training. NFHS is a class, but also if they're a teacher in the district, the teacher training can satisfy that. And then they have to have taken an NFHS fundamentals of coaching class. If they have a phys ed, major, minor, dance, major, minor, coaching, major, minor, that satisfies that requirement. I usually don't tell them that, so that they go through the coaching fundamentals anyway to do it. It's only $60, so it's not that big of an issue, but I just like them to make sure they get that information. That's a one-time class because it does take about 6 hours to go through it. There's about 10 modules as they go through that. Many of them do additional, they'll go to additional conferences, trainings for sports-specific stuff. These are the things that generally have to do with student safety, mandated by the state, so. Did you not say anything? Okay. I wanted to highlight a couple of things that our student athletes are involved in. I think we're in our 8th year now, especially for athletes. And I know all of you got an invite because I sent it to you on their biggest project. They do a holiday meals preparation service project. It's usually the Saturday we get out of school for the break. This year, because we got out so early, we actually pushed it back to the 23rd. This is the 8th year of this group, and I think it was year 7 for the holiday meals project, which we staged in the cafeteria. On that Saturday, the goal, the Agnew family, Ben, the year he was a junior, the Agnews had been trying to do something as a family, and Ben was part of this club. And he had come to us and said, hey, what if we did this with the group? I said, yeah, let's try it. The goal is to prepare 1,000 holiday meals for people that are in need in the area, whether it's in Park City, they service Heber, they do service some Native American populations, some Pacific Island populations that are in the area. The need is continuing to grow. James Agnew continues to get requests. So they raise money, then people show up. We essentially have an assembly line. They put the meals together and then people sign up for routes and take out and deliver to the families, which is pretty neat. It's growing very much. This year we had more people than we've ever had, and we'll put the last few years, we've never hit 1,000 meals. they put together about 600 to 800 meals in about 17 minutes. I mean, that's how fast it went. And then when they were out in the routes delivering. And I mean, as most of you know, most of us think of the holidays, we think of being around the table, with family, sharing a meal. So it's pretty significant. I really enjoy doing it. And all I do is show up and set the tables up on Saturday. The kids run this whole club. Marcella Woolley and Salem Hull, who are essentially the presidents of the club this year, set the whole thing up in terms of logistics, working with Agnew. And I just kind of sit back and support them and say, what do you need me to do to help? And they knocked it out of the park this year. We had so many people there. I'm sure we'll have more next year. So that's their biggest service project. As you can see on there, the biggest thing for this, especially for athletes group, is that little motto of eyes up, do the work. It's meant to talk about these kids that are doing extracurriculars being what they call sport light. Essentially that spotlight shining on them and using that for good. How can they impact their community and their school in a positive way? They've been meeting bi-weekly. They've been scheduling a lot of guest speakers to come in to talk about their experiences of former collegiate, professional, Olympic athletes to come in and talk to them about the benefits of doing that, and along with some of the mottos that go along with that. Like, for example, one of their pillars is compete without contempt. You know, the other team's not your enemy. It's they're just like you. And if they were in our school, they'd probably be your best friends. And so while there is competition, there shouldn't be any hatred with that. That's one of them. You know, one of the others is seek to bless, not impress. What can I do? It talks a lot about paying attention to who's, you know, if you're at lunch, who's the kid that's sitting alone, you know, go up and say hello, make a contact, and do those kinds of things. So there's some mental health pieces involved in that. So been good. One of the ones we've added the last couple of years, I think we're on year 4, is Desire to Lead, which is another leadership opportunity run by Jeremy Boone out of North Carolina, who also runs Winning Leader Academy and Leader Kit. But this is specifically for high school kids. There was, the last year we did it, there was 37 states and 4 countries, I think, involved. All the meetings are via Zoom on Mondays. And the kids go through a set leadership curriculum, which in my exposure and all the time I've done this is probably the best I've been with, especially for kids. I can't take all comers, especially for athletes. We try to take all comers. They've grown that program huge. I think there were 40 this year. I can only take about 20 for this program because of the bandwidth of what you can get onto Zoom. We're going to a female only for this. It's about to start up in the next couple of weeks, a female only for this semester, and then he'll layer back in. And he's doing that just because the girls are the ones that really kick butt in the program. And so he's gonna try to focus on them for this next one, whichever them. So that's been a very nice program to add on to, especially for athletes as well. The other thing that we've done this year is I purchased the Better program for all of the coaches, so all of them have access to this. This is by Kevin DeShazo out of Oklahoma City. It's kind of a partner with Giant Worldwide Leadership, and it's really worked on a team culture and developing kids. There's a leadership component as well. I mean, I'm obviously big on that. Is making every kid trying to help develop their leadership skills. And this has been a nice addition. The coaches have access. There's videos, there's lessons on there for them to share with the kids and for the kids to do the activity. So I've added that in there. That's been pretty nice. And I sent a PDF. I probably should have done this. Yes, I should have sent it as PowerPoint because it kind of messed up the format. So just to recap, we did realign for 23-25, go back to 4A Region 10 as Roger described in the fall, and I'll recap this in the summer, but in the fall, we lost 1 region contest in all the sports, which was pretty amazing. It was a 10, we lost 3-2 in girls tennis, and everything else we won. So I don't know if that's good or bad. I mean, it's a testament to our kids and how awesome they are and coming down from 5A. Cheer became sanctioned last year. We competed last year. We had some injuries and some other roster changes this year, so they're not competing this year. And then boys volleyball got sanctioned last year for this year, so we're going to get ready to start that in about a month and a half. They're doing open, actually, they're the first open gym tonight. And then we just recently started the athletic facility master planning process with MHTN, which has been delightful to work with them. They gave us some options to start thinking about last Thursday. So it's kind of exciting to take a look at what we can be doing. I think that's one of the things going forward when we're looking at athletics and extracurriculars is number 1 is staffing and coaches.
is making sure we can cover all the kids that are trying to be part of these programs. And the other one is facilities. I mean, those two things are the two factors that prevent us from being able to expand. I mean, there are some other factors in there, finding other teams to be able to play, that has come into place, but facilities definitely, even with the interlocal, we are a victim of our own success. So youth lacrosse doesn't allow our lacrosse program to get onto Canoe because they've got it booked. Youth soccer makes it tough for us to get on Quinn because makes our soccer programs tough to get on Quinn to boys soccer. And tennis, same thing at the Mark. Youth tennis is the one that kicks our boys practices to 8 o'clock because we've got youth tennis programs. So I guess it's a good problem to have, but definitely looking at facilities and expanding and figuring out ways to do multi-purpose with that.
Is that something we have any, as we're working on the interlocal agreements, is there any kind of assessment of like how much space would we really need? Like to really get all the kids that would like to practice, maybe JV teams, maybe, well, you know, intramural teams, like, do we have any concept of how many hours or how much, you know, how much field space or undercover space?
If we had one more field, and when I say field, I'm referring to artificial, simply because of the teams that are impacted the most are spring. And if we had one more field, and then that indoor space, that would be similar to a basin. I'm not saying it's exactly like that, but similar to a basin. I think that does it in terms of helping us get to that point where, okay, we have enough space where we can accommodate, you know, the teams that, for example, Coach Persky wants to add a third boys lacrosse team. But it's like, okay, where are they gonna practice? And then where are they gonna play? Because Dozier's already taken up, and so is Canoe. Dozier's already taken up between track, boys soccer, girls lacrosse, boys lacrosse, and we're talking about three, even though the sophomore freshman boys team will play over at Quinn's, but you got 3 boys soccer teams. You got essentially varsity JV track, even though they run together. You got 2 girls lacrosse teams and 2 boys lacrosse teams. So that's filling up Dozier right there. So it's tough. We talk about it every year. It's like, how can I do this? And so we try to work through it. Find the best way, even if it's a modified schedule, even if they don't play a full 16 games, they don't play 10. And figure out what practices we play.
The master facility planner is starting athletics planning and thinking, but they did already mention under cover, or under roof, whatever term they used, space, being important. Does the recreation bond in the city failing have any impact on this? Like if they would have passed that, would that have been more potential shared space, shared use, or was that more for adults?
If we had indoor space, it would be, we talked about this, I think I talked about this at the meeting that we had with the interlocal last week, that, you know, if we had that, it would relieve a lot of the pressure off the field house over Basin Rec, where they could do other programming there. Because if we had something like that, it would be full. All of our teams would have that thing programmed almost 24/7.
I think the municipal recreation fund was definitely driven a little more by the pickleball contingent.
Okay, more adults.
So the conversation around that I've heard is that group wants a pickleball facility and they should raise their own money and fund for pickleball.
And her more corporate.
Yes, yeah, so I don't think that they would.
So that was different. That was
Yes,
just
yes, so it wasn't more what we need, you know.
Yeah, I mean, my focus is always, even when we're doing our local discussions, is what do we need for our kids first? And then after that, like, just like, you know, it says, after we're done with our stuff, I don't care who uses it. I mean, community's welcome to come in, but, you know, I want to make sure our program is taking care of our kids.
Did you see?
Dan, did you have something?
Yeah, so it would have helped with hockey because of that a second sheet. I think there's still discussion of possibly breaking up that bond into categories. There are also 2 other developments that are happening near term, both Studio Crossing and Larry each other a little bit longer term, that may result in some additional fields in the area.
No, it's hard having us trade.
Any questions for Jamie and team?
I do have a couple follow-up. Thanks for being here. I'm glad we finally got to have this and have this discussion. I think it's actually, I hope we can do it more often, because I think to Caleb's initial point, and I speak from, as I myself played sports, played in college, my kids all play here, they all participate, they've all had great successes. They have lots of failures. I think I agree, it's one of the best things. I think that is where my biggest concern lies, that those who have not been able to participate are often those who maybe need it the most. And those who have been able to participate, because we know youth sports has become a business. We've got more private coaches probably in Park City than we do in lots of places, but, and we, you know, no shame of that. I think that's great. I know you proposed having extra time for student athletes to play and all of that. We talked about adding that to the budget, you know, extra. I am most concerned about, and these are narratives, right? So I don't have the numbers. I appreciate having how many participate. 40 kids cut from the lacrosse team. I know you know the numbers, 30 something from the boys soccer team last year. Some are in the class my son's in, so I know the kids that didn't make it. My son gets to play club because he's got all the other stuff, so he's gonna often have the access and the ability to make the teams, and then there goes a spot for a kid who otherwise has no ability to play any extracurricular sport. Now they're not having access to the activities that, the very things that we all know create more success. You know, better school, and they don't really have alternatives after school. And how to get past that, where and what do we as a board, how can we help support that? I recognize I'm not, I understand. Field space, I had 2 girls who played soccer. They played in North 40 the entire time. They never had a scoreboard. They, you know, but they gotta play. And I know kids would be willing to do that and families would be willing to support that. How do we get there? Like, I appreciate some of the other proposals, getting the extra practice times, that extra skills coach. I don't remember what we call them for the sports that, last time you both were here.
Sports performance coach, yeah.
So what?
Sports performance coach, essentially, I think it is.
Yeah, can we do that and find a way to get access to another coach to add another, like you said, lacrosse team, soccer team? I appreciate, I'm not underappreciating the challenges of this or this weather, that we cannot get it right with baseball. I mean, half those kids never play a home game because the school ends, yeah, softball too. I'm so thoughtful about how important this is for, particularly, and it often ends up being the same students that don't get to participate because there's not space or there's not numbers. I'm not saying let's give ribbons to everybody and have, you know, everybody, makes varsity. That's not what I'm saying here. But it does feel like we've hit kind of a critical moment of this. And, I'm not, as we consider new master facilities and we consider where to put our budget and our energy into, I would wonder how we could do that.
I appreciate those comments, because that's something that I wrestle with every day and have to wrestle with every day.
Yeah.
Constantly talking with the coaches, like if it's boys soccer, talking with Anthony saying, what does it look like? I mean,
Yeah.
I have that conversation with Coach Persky every year, usually about a month before, and he goes, I'm gonna have 80 kids show up.
Mhm.
Hey, how many can you take? Because the philosophy I'm trying to give everybody on that is, you know, take as many as you can, obviously.
Yeah.
But those you take, they need to play. Because if somebody's on a team, they don't play to sit there, so they're on teams and they play.
Yeah.
So make sure you can handle that. It always has to do with, I don't have enough coaches to handle that, or where are we gonna practice? So to continue negotiating that fine line of where we're at with that. I will be proposing some coaching stipend changes and salary schedule changes here at the next meeting. And that is gonna include adding a couple coaches to some sports, and I think that will help. Because there are some other coaches that said, if I had another coach, I could.
Right.
The only other thing we're limited by is with the UHSA, we can have a freshman, sophomore, JV and varsity. So we can have 4 teams. Those teams can play any other group of teams. A freshman team can play a varsity team, you know, so if our freshman boys across is really good, they can play a startup varsity in school, so that's fine.
Yeah.
And I've told Coach Persky that, is like, look, you can play whoever you want. He's like, well, I just need more coaches to be able to do those. And then just making sure we have the space to be able to do it, because
Yeah.
that does our numbers. We can't have, they don't allow us to have like an A and a B freshman or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So we are limited to the 4 teams. But I think that does help
Yeah.
accommodate more kids, especially some of the
Right.
kids we're missing.
Well, like soccer,
Yeah.
first year, sophomore, junior,
Yes.
senior.
And that's
right?
when you want to keep them. You want to keep them freshman, sophomore.
Yeah,
Because that's when, you know, you're.
more kids
okay.
can
Yes.
participate, yeah, it's not saying let's.
Because we lose them then, we don't know what they're getting into.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I think that's where I would say, I know there's a big push to raise the money to the scoreboard, there's a push to get this trainer. If we had to make a choice, I would say, let's lean into finding a way to get coaches and
I agree.
more opportunities for more kids to participate than I would to own those already who get to participate. If we had to make that choice, you gotta do it all, but if we have to prioritize.
I'm with you. Let's do it all.
Yeah, let's do it all, but I, I don't speak for everybody here, that would be and then one other thing, and I'm sorry about this, can we standardize banquets? End of the year, team
We
stuff,
certainly-
I have had
we
so many
certainly can.
different, or at least consider some
What-
baseline.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Because I can go with whatever direction you kind of want to, because
Well-
it is a little bit of
Yeah.
a pain point for me too, because
Yeah, I
it's
bet.
a little
I
different.
bet. No, here's my experience and what I saw. Banquet, great, beautiful, at Stein's, $35 a person. Getting up there was not an easy thing for every family, certainly wasn't to pay $35. So for me and my husband to take our kid, it's, or $30. The parent that offered, they did such a great job. And those who are putting these on are working really hard to do so. And I know they offered to support families that couldn't. It's still that piece of having to ask for that I think feels kind of hard for some. And yucky. And then I participated in playing the cross country one, which was Alberto's burrito at Ecker.
Yep.
And
Maybe a little bit more low key.
yeah, right. And part of it is, I don't want to take away what a football team or what anyone wants to do, but maybe that could be another type of party, but we have some baseline for banquets so that it's more about accessibility for all to be a part of, because for some, that's gonna be a big moment to go and, get their
Banquets
coach talk about them or.
Banquets and senior night, we run into the problem where it becomes keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak, that the group of senior parents this year want to do more than was done last year, and then it keeps going like that, and we've seen it. Well, and even senior nights are out of control,
Yeah,
in terms of the things that they're doing
My kids
and
have
the things that they ask for.
yeah,
So yeah, I'd love to.
it's so well
to-
intended, so lovely, and I think all of that, I don't wanna take away people's efforts there, but I think when it starts to reduce accessibility, it feels like something that we should.
The other thing I do want to mention, and not just in relation to that, but just in general, is the RISE Fund the last few years has been an awesome addition.
I totally.
And we're continuing to spread the word, because
That's right.
it's been a great addition, and Junior's been awesome to work with. In terms of making sure that there isn't one key, we've never turned anybody away because of money anyway, we just,
Right,
we
right,
just dealt with it, but now, from a coaching standpoint, they're able to plan budgets knowing that, okay, I can plan for this number, and this is, I know this money will be there.
right.
So it's been a phenomenal addition.
And it also goes beyond just athletics. I mean, with band,
Yeah.
traveling to DC,
Totally.
or with
Yeah,
debate, you model
Yeah.
UN, they've been very, very generous
Supportive
and
and
supportive.
generous,
Yes.
well, I would just say thanks and let us know how we can support you.
Just if I were to back up to your earlier question, how do we get more people involved? We're looking at middle school feasibility, because a big problem is we are limited, and the truth is, a lot of kids, if they don't make the high school team, the UHSA sanction, are not going, there's a social reality to like, I didn't make it, I don't wanna get involved in the intramural thing or do that, but if we were able to do something more strategically at the middle school level, which is not sanctioned by USHSA, but we have Wasatch with multiple middle schools, South Summit, North Summit. You can think about Morgan and Salt Lake schools, that you can at least start some of that's
That'd be
something
great.
that we're teasing out a little bit.
Yeah.
Comes the cost, comes
Yeah.
the space issue,
Yeah,
logistics, and how do you find good coaches when you don't give them the grant? And it's not, they don't love it, it is the complexity of, I can't afford to coach.
right, Yeah,
Just want to add one more thing to what he said at the start in terms of the impact that, we know there's higher GPAs, we know there's better attendance, we know all those things that go along with these programs. When I always make the joke about when you ask anybody what's their fondest memories of high school, they don't say taking math tests or doing English tests. They talk about bus rides and being in locker rooms and competing with, being athletics. I mean,
high school
that's what
sweatshirt
people
on.
always remember. When you go back and look at the numbers, the UHSA, there's a 20-hour rule for the week. That doesn't include competition. Competitions only count as 3 hours. So no matter if they're there, and they're usually there with them for about 8 hours. So like if he was at Murray tonight, which I'm headed to as well, the coach would be with him for 8 hours of basketball. And a lot of times for other sports. So many times, so let's, even if we just say the 20 hours, a teacher is spending maybe 4, maybe 5 hours with a kid in any given week. These coaches are spending over 20. And the impact they're having on these kids is significant. And that's, when we talk about the adult wrestling, is huge. So I really want to play that up, that I don't mind asking the coaches to be more accountable for these things, for all this stuff, and just making sure though that we're recognizing them for that contribution that they're making in the lives, in the lives of the kids.
And supporting them so they can keep doing it, because you can't do what you don't have.
Yeah.
So we gotta resource them.
Yeah, I think it'd be really helpful to see the actual numbers, more than just kind of the anecdotal. So specifically, all right, how many kids are actually playing sports and doing each activity, like unique people, unique users. And then what is their GPA, their attendance record? And is it a huge gap, right? Because I think if it is, it makes it a very valid argument that we need to increase our budget for extracurricular activities if there's a solid correlation, right? And we have to look at it. There's a lot of things that could impact those, right? But I would be really curious to see more information on it. Like how many, of the high school kids, how many are actually doing sports or debate or whatever it is, and is their GPA really better, right? And who are the kids, who are the groups who aren't participating, right? Who's getting shut out? Is it based on, socioeconomic status? Is it, because they didn't have the opportunities as a younger kid to play club? Or what is, what are your thoughts on, and what are the coaches' thoughts on how these kids are doing and who's doing well, who's progressing, who isn't, why? Because I also believe that, I also believe that every kid should be playing a sport every season, but it's easier said than done. But I think there is a lot of goodwill and a lot of funding in this community to make that happen, whether it's, tax dollars from people or it's private money like the Ross Foundation, right? And I think if you do that work and have that data, then you can go back to them and say, look, we need another $1 million a year because it's gonna affect 300 kids, or whatever those numbers are. And I think they'll probably be buying it. We can show the, justification for it.
Thanks for being here. Drive safely.
All right, what else do we have here? Done that, okay, we have 2 policies to place in. We have the new SRO contracts policy, which will be somewhere in the 5,000 range, and we have policy 9110 acceptable use policy. I will entertain a motion to post these 2 policies.
I make a motion to post both policies.
Second.
Okay, do we have any questions or discussion on these 2 postings?
No, other than that first contracts, SRO contracts, like that's related to the grant money, right?
No, the first SRO contract is a redo of the current Park City Police Department SRO contract.
But our increase that we're looking to add another SRO.
Yeah, so through the House Bill 61 money, I applied for SRO dollars.
Okay.
I talked to Summit County Sheriff's Office about expanding that.
Collaborating,
Along with
yeah. forever.
And so we envision starting with fall 2025, when the kids end up at Eckerd, having
Yeah.
a dedicated SRO there, and we'll go 50-50 with them.
Okay.
So once that bag is secured, it should go for at least 2 years.
But this would apply to that SRO too. This policy.
This contract.
Yeah.
We're talking about, no, this contract is specific to Park City Police Department, not some.
So only on this Kearns campuses.
That's right. This
No.
She's asking about the policy, not the contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
The policy is the
That's all.
umbrella that we, yeah, yes, and that would affect.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, all right, all those in favor of posting the two policies, please say aye. Aye. All right, we have 6 policies for adoption. I will entertain a motion to adopt policy 4,000, policy 4015, policy 4020, policy 5015, 5020, and 5025.
I make the motion to adopt the policy, 6 policies. Stated.
Okay, Laura, do we have any public feedback on any of those?
I have not received anything.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments on the final versions of these 6 policies? No, okay, all those in favor of passing these 6 policies, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Do we have anyone for public comments? Not. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn until our next regularly scheduled meeting, which should be
February 13th.
13th at 4 P.M. February 13th at 4 P.M.
I make a motion to adjourn until February 13th at 4 P.M.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning? Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.